G'day there guys, it's your Aussie Hubby Markee, back at it again with another r/DatingHell video. Now if you love me as much as I love you, you'll head on down to that subscribe and like button and just smash the hell out of it. Now with that out of the way, I'd love for you to sit back, relax, chuck a prawn on the barbie, and get ready for some major disappointment. He complained about his ex and awful childhood the entire time on a first date. On his profile, it says he's 5'11", but he shows up and he's much shorter than me. I'm 5'8", a little tall for a girl. I prefer guys to be my height or taller, but I thought, hey, I shouldn't be so shallow and, maybe just give this guy a chance. He seemed like a really great guy. We sat down and started talking, and right off the bat, he complained and complained. Talked about how hard his childhood was, how his mother was never home and she had to work a lot, and how he had to care for himself at a young age. I would try to say stuff like, wow, that must have been really hard for you. I'm so sorry you had to go through that. You must be very hardworking as an adult. Trying to reflect his emotion and put a positive spin on things to make the conversation less sad. But he would keep complaining. I've never met such a negative Nelly in my life. He was also arrogant. He talked about that he is the youngest at his work, and he is by far the best there, and everybody knows it. He worked in IT. Then he talked about his ex, and said how much he hated drinking and going out clubbing. I'm 21, and he was about 22 or 23, so I don't think it's odd that I like the occasional night out, and there's nothing wrong if that's not his scene. And he asked, do you go clubbing a lot? I said I do on some weekends, and he grimaced, and told me about how his ex went out clubbing and she made out with some guy and cheated on him, etc. I once again said, wow, I'm sorry to hear that. We then went for a walk, and he's going on and on about how she blocked him and he just wishes to talk to her and see her again, and that he misses her all the time. We walked past a 7-Eleven and he starts saying how it reminds him of that time that he bought Krispy Kreme donuts and went to her apartment to talk it out after he found out about the cheating. I then asked how long they were dating for. He said 5 weeks. So what I believe happened was, he was talking to this girl for 5 weeks, and it wasn't serious or official. She went out and kissed a guy, and then he showed up at her door to give her Krispy Kremes. She tells him to leave and she blocks him. Then I say, I'm gonna go home. It was good meeting you. And he says, yeah, sorry if I ruined your night. I don't think I'm over my ex, hey. Yeah, no crap, Einstein. I honestly think he saw my Bumble profile and read that I'm studying to be a social worker and he wanted a free therapy session. My mum, who is a social worker, says I should have charged him, lol. I audibly laughed at the 5 weeks disclosure. I'm sorry to hear about your dud of a date, but I agree with your analysis. At this point, he'd been talking about this girl for ages. Then he dropped the 5 weeks, and my mind was like, oh my god, run. And that guy radiates insecurity. If that ain't true, I don't know what is. And our next post, by Not My Dog Paul. It started off normal, but took a hard left turn. So I'm a cisgender male. I matched with this one girl on Tinder. We decided to meet up at the local park, since it's public and we had a chance to just walk around and have a nice chat. Plus, the weather was pretty nice. Suddenly though, the weather got pretty cold and windy. She suggested we went to my car for warmth, and continued to talk and maybe exchange some YouTube videos. That's what we did until she got a little bit frisky. I was okay with it. We started to make out. This is fine. She grabbed my chest. Unexpected, but okay. Then she dropped the bomb on me. You're such a pretty girl. That was a bit much. I didn't really like the direction that was going. I pulled back and I said, what? She was immediately really apologetic and started crying. She calmed down and told me that she's been trying to suppress the fact that she's a lesbian, even though she's always known. It's because her mum is extremely religious. I didn't quite know how to react, but okay. Kinda awkward, but I'm glad she's living her true self now. Then things kinda got off the rails. She decided that then and there, she was gonna call her mum and come out to her. I asked her if she thought that was a good idea. She said, I don't care. She called her mum, still in my car, and came out to her. There was screaming and crying on the other end of the line. I couldn't quite make out what was being said, but at one point she just started weeping and saying, "Mum, please." So long story short, she was kicked out of the house. What the fuck? She was having a full-blown panic attack, which I can't really judge her for. I mean, who wouldn't? But when she calmed down a bit, I asked if there was somewhere she can stay. She said with her dad. I said, no problem. Where does he live? 60 miles away was the answer. But I'm nothing if not a man of my word. So I drove her there. She spent the whole car ride on the phone with him, in tears. I didn't hear much, but from what I could tell, judging by what she was saying, he sounded like a really nice, supportive dad. When we got there, her dad thanked me for giving her a ride, and to his credit, he fed me dinner and gave me $50 in gas money. So that was really nice of him. I just went home and went to sleep. I texted her a week later to make sure she was doing okay and check in, but that was the end of our correspondence. Damn, you're a straight up good person and will make an amazing catch for someone who isn't a lesbian. Lol, hopefully. Why did that have to happen right at that moment with someone she barely knew? It happens when it happens. I guess it's good it happened with you and not some jerk. Props to you for helping though. And wow, imagine how relieved she and her dad were this happened on a date with someone who would go this far for a stranger. Like, obviously shouldn't have happened right then, but it was great she was on a date with an empathetic person. To be fair, if it was me in the situation, I would do the same thing, I'm not gonna lie. I would go out on a limb. I've done it for people before, and it's kind of just karma. You get what you put out there. Stupidly enough, karma also led 14-year-old Markee to giving $150 to someone while he was working casual at McDonald's while still at school. That was a really dumb one to do. Anyway, on to our next story. Posted by user Soliart. Wheelchair, no responding, long salad, how about sex and kids? Spilled wine, mum degrades date, temper tantrum. My god. Disclaimer, I've put off posting this for a good while, because as awkward and horrible as the date went, much of it was due to her being dealt a pretty crappy hand in life, and not because she was a bad person. In fact, I admire her courage, and I sincerely hope that she found what she was searching for. None of this is meant to mock her, or anyone with a disability at all, but rather to find humour in a very surreal situation, coupled with poor communication and mismatched expectations. If I could approach the story from her point of view as well, I would. That said, let's begin. This happened around 10-ish years ago. I began talking online with a woman. I'll call her Helga, for no reason other than I've always wanted to meet a Helga, on OkCupid of all places, and she seemed like a pretty cool person. I learned she was wheelchair bound, but I figured, so what? She asked me to order her a glass of wine on our date, and I was all, sure. We arranged to meet at a popular mid-range chain restaurant near her, and she asked that I wait outside for her to arrive, because she doesn't drive and has special transportation. On the day of the date, I arrived about 15 minutes early, and there wasn't much parking, so I had to park somewhat far from the restaurant. I walked over and sat on a bench to wait. After about 10 minutes, a large shuttle van pulled up and the driver yelled out the window, "You Solly?" I cautiously replied with a, "Yeah?" He confirmed with an okay and got out of the van, walked around the vehicle while a ramp on its midsection slowly and loudly ground open. I wasn't at all sure what to do or what etiquette was for the situation, but I slowly started approaching the ramp. The driver walked up the incline, began removing what looked like 7 parachutes worth of straps from Helga and her wheelchair, and then wheeled her down to me. This is when I realized she left a bit out when she and I talked online. While I knew she was wheelchair bound, she didn't divulge that she had very little bodily autonomy, as well as several other factors that I'll explain when they become relevant. I greeted Helga and asked how she was and the usual small talk. The van driver yelled that he'll be back in 2 hours and left. Then I wheeled her into the restaurant, as her wheelchair wasn't able to be moved under the occupant's power. That is, the wheelchair wasn't motorized, nor did it have anywhere to grip the wheels. I mentioned this because, as a result, I had to pathetically and clumsily maneuver the both of us through the restaurant's large double doors, preferably without letting a door hit Helga or her chair. All the while, a family stared blankly at us, and also kindly did not help. Throughout the awkward attempt to enter a building, Helga said absolutely nothing. But hey, we made it in. Smooth sailing from here on, right? The restaurant's greeter welcomed us and escorted us to a table that was located fairly central to the dining area. This is relevant. The greeter removed one of the table's chairs, and I pushed Helga into place and awkwardly tried to help her take her coat off and gloves off. Helga didn't touch the menu, so I asked if I could help at all. She didn't reply, or even acknowledge that I spoke. After an awkward pause, I opened my menu and started looking through it. I should say, I'm one of those people who easily gets analysis paralysis, and I take an annoyingly long time to decide most anything. Relatable. Anyway, while I was browsing the menu, I noticed Helga staring at me, the pressure from which she added to my indecisiveness. The server came by and asked if we'd like a drink to start out with. Helga abruptly and loudly exclaimed, "I want the chicken Caesar salad!" This caught me off guard. Rattled, I panic ordered some type of salad and soda water. That's when I remembered she wanted me to get her a glass of wine. I asked Helga which wine she'd like, but she didn't respond. So I ordered the first one listed. I know nothing about wine selection. The server told us she will be right back with our drinks. And as she walked away, she gave me this "I'm so sorry" look. Helga began asking me a few questions, stuff about school and jobs and interests. I answered and she nodded along. The thing is, nearly every question I asked her went completely ignored. I was completely at a loss on what to do. Helga told me she needed to call her mum and let her know that I showed up, and that she was safe. She took out her mum's phone, she didn't have one of her own, and began attempting to dial with it. With her limited coordination though, the process of dialing continued for at least a minute. All the while, I was asking her if I could help her dial or dial for her, while holding up my cell phone and frantically gesturing towards it. I was ignored again, but thankfully she managed to get a hold of her mum and talk to her for maybe 20 seconds. Our drinks and food arrived, and I noticed that Helga is struggling to grasp the narrow stem of the wine flute. I asked Helga if she would like a different cup for her wine, but she didn't reply. About 10 seconds of her struggling went by, then she asked me to ask the server for a different cup. I called over the server when she next passed by, and requested a children's cup and a straw. My thinking was that if she does knock it over, at least there won't be any glass shards to worry about. Again, as the server walked away, she gave me a look similar to what someone might give a puppy that they want to adopt, but just aren't able to at the time. Once our meals arrived, I felt relieved to have something to distract from the awkwardness. While crunching away at some former foliage, I looked up from my plate and noticed Helga maneuvering her fork over her salad much the same way as one of those coin-operated prizes games, with the claws that hover over a bunch of cheap crap before being lowered to a selected target. You know the ones. Which, in this case, is salad greens. I totally understood that this method of fork handling was the result of her poor coordination, but that didn't make it any less surreal. Helga began asking me a series of personal questions. I believe she was trying to assess my intentions. Still though, she wouldn't acknowledge anything I asked. As I attempted to engage her in this conversation, if you want to call it that, I also had to consciously force myself to eat as slowly as possible, because I didn't want to finish my salad 30 minutes before she did. Then it happened. Well, the first of a series of "it's" happened. First though, let me restate that our table was pretty central in the room. Additionally, Helga had little control over the volume of her voice. At least, that's how it seemed. She loudly proclaimed something along the lines of, "I'm hoping to find someone to get me pregnant, and if my mum and I like you, you could be the one to do that." I was completely unprepared for that statement, and all I could do was nervously dart my eyes around the room. I noticed I wasn't alone in being shocked into silence. It felt like the whole of the room was suddenly honed in to the two of us, with looks of nervous disbelief and judgment. I remember the many faces in the room giving Helga and me their undivided attention far more vividly than I remember my own response to her. I am pretty sure I awkwardly chuckled and went back to my salad. That moment felt longer than the date itself. After about an hour passed, Helga finally finished her salad. I briefly excused myself to the restroom to splash water on my face and to collect myself. I returned to the table, paid, and asked Helga if there was anywhere nearby she wanted to go. She didn't respond. After pointlessly repeating myself a few times, I gave up and walked over to her to help her to put her gloves and coat on. Tink! Over went the wine cup as Helga's arm lifted to go into her coat sleeve. I kid you not, the wine spilled nowhere except on her lap. Crap, I thought, as I grabbed the cup as quickly as I could so that it wouldn't completely empty onto her. It's okay, I said in what I imagine was a completely non-reassuring panicky tone. My gaze darting about, looking for some sort of solution. I saw a stack of napkins, grabbed them, and began patting her lap dry in the most non-provocative way that I could. You know, using those thick wads of napkins, staring off into the middle distance and being completely silent. This, of all possible moments, is when her mother entered the restaurant and walked over to us. I nearly shat myself. Surprisingly, her mother was completely understanding. Also surprisingly, her mother began talking to me as though Helga wasn't present. Wow, most guys have left by now. Some who stay are just hoping for sex. You know, you can leave if you want, it's really okay. I assured her that I wasn't after sex, which was true, and said I was having a nice time, which was so untrue. I wanted to leave so badly, but I felt horrible for her and didn't want to ditch her like everyone else apparently did. For the 20-ish minutes remaining before her van would come to pick her up, I wheeled her around Barnes & Noble. It was horrible because I kept asking her what books, movies, and music she liked so I could bring her to those sections. But she never replied to me, and I felt as though I was imposing my will on her by having complete agency over what she could look at in the store. Finally, it was time to head back so she could get her van. I pushed Helga in her wheelchair back to the restaurant, while her mum tagged along. Helga asked me where I parked, and I explained that I parked somewhat far away because the lot was full. Helga's mum insisted that there wasn't time to go see my car. Helga began screaming, "I want to see his car! I want to see it! Let me see it!" I didn't know what to do. Her mum took the wheelchair out of my hands and told me to go home. For the whole of the hour drive home, I sat in complete silence, my brain replaying parts of the date in an attempt to process the events of the last 2 hours. The following day, I got a message from Helga thanking me for the date and asking for a second one. I asked her why she ignored nearly everything I asked her. Apparently, she was hard of hearing and just never told me. I declined the offer for a second date as gently as I could. On the bright side, I guess, I was so much more relaxed for every date I had since then, even the one where my date got arrested. After all, how could a date possibly go worse? Man knows how to throw a zinger in right at the end there, I'll tell you that. That was amazingly well written. And the arrested date story is being posted when? When I write it, I guess. It will probably be disappointing after this story. Kanchan34 says, "So you were literally talking to yourself during that date because she couldn't hear you. It also explains why she was so loud. I'm guessing Mum was trying to allow independence while monitoring her. I have a feeling she didn't want her to be pregnant. You sound like a gentleman though." Yeah, and I'm generally fairly soft-spoken too. If I had known she was hard of hearing, a lot could have been solved by me just talking louder. I honestly never thought about her mum's perspective on her having children. I don't know what her mum thought. Helga's statement about having kids seemed to indicate that her mum was okay with it. Maybe? I really don't know. It may have been more of an, okay honey, I have to approve of them too, with no intention of approving anyone. Sounds like she had gone through the situation a few times and was surprised you stuck around without being a pervert, hence all the outs she gave you. I really don't think the mum wanted her to have a baby, but was rather humouring her. Yeah, I agree with that one. What do you guys think? And I also can't imagine all the perverts that would be in there, like the disability fetishes that would be preying on people like that, I guess. Sounds like they've been through some rough times. Anyway guys, there is 2 more stories and then we're done today, so let's get on to the next one. TLDR, pretty sure he was a pedophile. So, I'm in my early 20s. My age is always on my dating profile. I meet up with a guy in his late 20s. He offers to buy me some coffee, and I catch a bus downtown to meet him. The whole time this guy is shaking nervous, like looking around and staggering words, and I legit figured it was just because he wasn't that attractive and maybe new to dating. No big deal, people get nervous. He asks me about my hobbies. I talk about my artwork. I ask him about his hobbies, and he goes on to tell me about his gaming room and how his friends really like his Family Guy impressions. Alright, here's mine real quick. Hey Lois. Yeah, what's up, Joe? You like it? Alright, back to the story. He does a full 4 different impressions from Family Guy and really pushes how much his friends like them, like, oh yeah, they think I'm the hilarious one of the group because of my good impressions of Stewie. So I try to talk to him about video games, and every game I bring up, he tells me, yeah, I have that at my place, I could take you there, and we could play if you want. He talked about how crazy his ex-wife was, and made sure to let me know that he wasn't a sex hound like other men. He then proceeds to tip his fedora and wipe Cheetos off of his beard, his neck beard. At some point, I had mentioned I was in college, and he confusingly asked how old I was. I said 23, and he let out a deep sigh and exclaimed that he thought I was much younger. What the fuck? Yeah, I thought you were 16, he says, looking way more relaxed now. By the time I finished my coffee, that he bought me despite not buying any for himself, he insisted he drive me home, or we can play a game you like at my place. I tell him I like taking the bus and never see him again. The fact that he thought I was 16 and continued to go on this date haunts me. But I'm the one narrating this, and this is making me uneasy. God damn. And he wanted to take her to the place before finding out she was 23. Disgusting. The fact he went on the date at all thinking I was a 16-year-old. I immediately checked to make sure my age was public. And yeah, just like always, because I myself wouldn't want to meet up with a teenager. Oh my god, can we arrest this guy? Where is he? Anyway, on to our last story. Every New Yorker's nightmare. Get out of the way, I'm walking here, buddy! 34 male and dating in New York City. Up until fairly recently, I mostly treated dating as a means to a relationship. These days, I've been loosening up a bit and learning how to navigate casual dating and hookups as well, which has been fun, but also led to some more ridiculous experiences. I recently matched with a 22-year-old through a hookup app. Definitely a bit outside of my normal age range, but I figured as long as we're both on the same page about it, then why not? I consulted with some close female friends that dated much older guys when they were younger, and they gave me the thumbs up and some general tips on how to make her feel comfortable and keep things light. We met for drinks by her place and hit it off. This girl was incredibly attractive, not to mention smart and talented. As we're leaving the bar to head to her place, she gets a text from her roommate who is coming home unexpectedly, or so she said, and she suggests we go to my place instead. Clothes start coming off pretty fast. I'm super turned on, and the sex is really good. She was surprisingly dominant, which I wasn't expecting. I also didn't expect to like that dominance as much as I did. but then I start to notice some marks around her shoulder and chest that kind of look like bug bites. Side note about me, I survived a really bad bug infestation in a previous apartment many years ago, and still have lingering PTSD about it. All my friends know this is one of my greatest anxieties. So of course, when I see the marks, I think to myself, are they bedbug bites? Nah, I'm just being paranoid. And keep having sex until we finish. Good man, that's what we do. We finish the job, buddy. But afterwards, as we're laying in bed, I just couldn't help myself. I touch one of the marks and ask, so what's going on here? And she gives a little chuckle and says, oh, they're bedbug bites. I'm still holding out some kind of hope, like maybe she previously had bedbugs and took care of them, but the bites haven't gone away yet. I press further, and she tells me she currently has bedbugs at her place. I'm freaking out on the inside, but didn't let it show. She says, yeah, I reported them, and gives a little shrug. Like, hey, what else can I do? I laid silently for a minute processing my situation, trying to think of what to say while really trying not to freak her out. But finally, I just got up and told her that I have to do something really extra, and started putting all of her clothes, purse, etc. in a big plastic recycling bag and sealed it up. I fully expected her to get offended or mad or embarrassed or something. Anything. But she just stayed in bed like nothing happened. Maybe I was being a little too chill about everything, but hey, the damage had already been done, so I got back in bed and we had sex again. Good man, that's a good man right there. She started talking about how tired she was, as if she was about to spend the night, and that's when I finally had to kick her out, saying I don't sleep well with others, which is also true, by the way. I never spend the night with hookups. It's not doing it well then, are you, buddy? I got her a car, and we seemed to have parted on good terms, although she seemed surprised that I was kicking her out. Then, I was up for another 2 hours, stripping and sealing up all my bedding, vacuuming the crap out of my couch, and inspecting everything with a flashlight like a crazy man. I texted her the next day saying I had a great time and would love to do it again sometime, but just can't until she handles her bedbug situation, because it would stress me out too much. She immediately unmatched me in the app and never replied to my text. What's this girl's deal? Does she think I'm the jerk in this situation? Do you guys think she's really just as clueless as to the severity of the bedbug situation? Or was she purposefully being deceptive to come back to my place to avoid hers? Anyways, just thought it was a crazy story. The sex was pretty hot, but no sex is worth getting bedbugs over. Depends, man. How good is it? You know what I'm saying? We're talking about like Kim Kardashian here. We're talking about, Mia Khalifa maybe? I don't know, man. Alright guys, that's the end of the story. I'm not going to read any of the comments here. There's not that many funny ones down here. You know, it's stuff that makes your skin crawl. But I do think that, yeah, bedbugs is 100% reasonable to kick them out in this situation. Like, you're not going to take risks like that, man. She's inconsiderate, and I think her feelings were being hurt there. Like, she's insecure about it. She's like, oh, I'm hurt. I'm just going to unmatch, so I have to deal with this embarrassment instead of being an adult like she was supposed to be. That's me. Don't beat me up for it, please. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode. This is like, I don't know, I'm really passionate, I guess, about DatingHell because the stories are all so well written and hilarious. But yeah, tell me what you guys think. I just had fun letting go and just being Markee in this episode. Which, you know, hinting to when I start streaming or something, you can get a bit more of my personality. But hey, whatever. I'll see you guys in the next episode, and I hope you have a good day. Bye.